Do you have a tendency to rush into things? Are you the kind of person who tends to pick up a fight? Do you always feel like you're up to the challenge? Well, get ready to rush and roll over your opponents in a convincing fashion. All that while playing only what you can afford. That's right. For around 17 US dollars, we're showing you a deck you can build, master, upgrade, and even bring to your local league to have fun with and compete in matches. Hello, Inkspill Glimmers. I'm your host, Nick, and welcome back to the Inkling Adventures, the series where we help players take their first journey into the wonderful world of Lorcana. Today, we're exploring the world of deck building with a starter budget version of Ruby Amethyst Challenge. You ready? Let's take a dive. This version of Ruby Amethyst really shines when you're able to challenge your opponent. To do so, it relies on Queen of Heart sensing weakness and Shere Khan menacing predators to give you a ton of value every single time one of your character challenges another one. The goal of the deck is to play a lot of character that either are good challengers or are going to give you value when you're challenging. Then, use characters like Elsa or Hydros to exert your opponent's character, making them vulnerable, and being able to challenge into them, creating your own opportunities from their cards. Finally, use Isabella Madrigal and Maui's Fishhook to deal with those pesky evasives that might be harder to grasp and challenge. And eventually, all will be dust, and the world will be yours. The one drop of choice in the deck is Magic Broom Illuminary Keeper. When you play another character, you might banish him to draw a card. Since we're not a deck that wants to deploy early on with big threats, he does a really good job of filling back your hand. If you don't have a Magic Broom, we only have two of him after all, you can play a Cogsworth if you need to. But he's really more for late game, being able to give rush to any one of your characters to challenge right away. So we'd recommend looking for Ruby Chromicon or Imperial Proclamation instead, which will either give more strength to your characters or reduce the cost of your other characters once you start challenging. On turn 2, depending on what your opponent's doing, you might want to play Lumiere, Fiery Friend, who's going to give all your other characters one extra strength, or Queen of Heart, Impulsive Ruler, who's a 2/2 rush that can remove a pesky 1-drop that the opponent played and quested with. Then, starting on 3, we get the value engine rolling. We can get Shere Khan down, getting lore for every time we challenge. We can get Aladdin down. When you play him, each opponent loses 1 lore, giving you back a little bit of tempo. We can play Elsa, the Snow Queen, that you can exert to exert chosen opposing character, or Hydros, the Ice Titan, that you can exert to exert chosen character, opposing or not. Hydros is the advantage of questing for 2 if you need him in a pinch. Aladdin is a good tempo play, but is also a really good shift target for Aladdin Heroic Outlaw, a 7-drop shifting for 5, questing for 2, that whenever he challenges and banishes another character, you gain 2 lore, and each opponent loses 2 lore. On turn 4, you're going to want to play either Dolores Madrigal, who will draw you a card if your opponent has an exerted character, which is quite easy to do with Elsa and Hydros. Goofy Super Goof, which is a 2/4 rush character that whenever he challenges gains you 2 lore. Or Prince Eric, Expert Helmsman, who, whenever he's defeated, say in a challenge, will allow you to banish chosen character. Of note, in the 4 slot, is something that interacts really well with Prince Eric in Glimmer vs. Glimmer, an action that banishes a chosen character of yours to banish another chosen character. If you banish Prince Eric with Glimmer vs. Glimmer, you're going to get to remove 2 characters, one from Glimmer vs. Glimmer and one from Prince Eric. Works every time. In the 5-drop, we have Isabella Madrigal, the Golden Child, who's a 3/4 evasive that has, during your turn, if no other character has quested, she quests for 3 more, meaning she can quest for 4 if she's alone questing. But also that whenever this character quests, your other characters can't quest for the rest of your turn. So she can quest for 4 if she's the only one questing this turn. On 5, we also have Hercules, Daring Demigod, which is a really great challenger with Rush and Reckless for 5 and 7 strength that can remove anything in their way and draw you cards with the Queen of Hearts and gain you lore with Shere Khan and do all of that spin. We're rounding up the characters with the Queen of Heart and Aladdin that we've already touched on. Queen of Heart drawing you cards every time you challenge, and Aladdin doing that lore drain every time you do. In terms of actions, only the Glimmer versus Glimmer. We're not an action deck here. We're a character-focused deck. In terms of items, 2 Imperial Proclamations. So whenever you challenge a character, your next character costs 1 less. So this is our way to ramp into bigger threats. 2 Chromicons to get our characters bigger. 2 Maui's fish hooks to give your character either +3 strength this turn or evasive until the start of your next turn. This can be used either to remove an evasive threat from your opponent or to give evasive to one of your characters and just make it untouchable for the next turn if you have to exert them for a reason or another. It says that if you have a Maui, you can play him for free. We don't have a Maui in this deck, but you can activate the ability for free if you do. And finally, 1 copy of Sumerian Talisman, which during your turn, whenever one of your characters is banished in a challenge, you may draw a card. So when you're rushing those characters in to remove the opponent's characters, might as well get some cards for it. Finally, wrapping everything up, we have 3 copies of the Library, a gift for Belle. It's a 8 willpower location that gains 1 lore a turn, and that has whenever a character is banished while here, you may draw a card. So once again, if you're going to throw your character to the opponent, might as well get value out of it. So pay 1, send the character there, crash it into the opponent, and then draw your cards. When it comes to upgrading this deck, there's a lot of ways you can go at various budgets. The easiest thing to do is to add the Madame Mim package of Mim Snakes, which are about 30 cents each, Mim Foxes at $5.70, and Mim Elephant at around $2.50. All 3 of those characters, when they come into play, will make you return a character from your hand or banish the Madame Mim. This is especially useful when your characters do powerful stuff on entry or are hurt from challenging other characters and you want to recycle them. Similarly, speaking of characters who do something on entry, you can go with Elsa the Fifth Spirit, a $3.29 card with Rush and Evasive that when she comes into play, exerts chosen character. Not only can she deal with pesky evasives, she can also basically do the same thing as the other Elsa or the Hydros when she comes into play. And if you play her and Elsa Snow Queen, you might be tempted to invest a little bit more, around $10, into some Elsa Spirit of Winter, which shifts on any of your Elsa for 6. And when she comes into play, you choose 2 characters. They get exerted and they can't ready at the start of their next turn. So these will be permanent targets for 2 turns and prevent them from questing, challenging, or doing really anything. If you want to challenge into those characters, the 2 biggest things you might consider are Maui, Hero to All, at around $13, which is a 6/5 with Rush and Reckless for 5, or Scar, Vicious Cheater, a legendary 6/5 for 7 uninkable with Rush, that during your turn, whenever he banishes another character in a challenge, may ready himself and not be able to quest. So if the opponent has a lot of little cards lying around, you might send them in and challenge 2, 3, 4 times before he eventually gets beaten, or just leave him ready at the end of all that got a few cards from the Queen of Art, a few lore from Shere Khan. So he's a really good all-arounder, and at $4.32, one of the great investments you can make for this deck. The other thing you can get in this deck is Gaston, Pure Paragon, which is going to take advantage of the fact that your characters are probably going to be hurt with some damage counters on them by reducing his cost from 9 by 2 to for every single character you have who has damage counters on them. He's a 10-6 rush that quests for 2 and can really do a solid damage in the late game. Similarly, you can go and replace your Glimmer versus Glimmer or upgrade them with some Bee Kings Undisputed for under $1 each that will make each opponent choose and banish one of their characters. Not as versatile as choosing the character, but it's not costing you one character either to do it. And finally, you can replace the libraries with the more expensive Queen's Castle, a $10.77 location with 7 willpower that gives you 2 lore at the start of every turn, and that will draw you a card for every character that is located there at the beginning of your turn. Now, let's jump into the game and see how this more control-y deck fares against the field. So, Ruby Amethyst, the nemesis of the format for a very long time. Playing here against another Amethyst deck. Seems to be the Emerald Amethyst one. So, turn 1, Ruby Chromicon, that's very much on par with what this deck wants to do. I said in the beginning, the nemesis of the format. This is not the version that was a nemesis, obviously. The more control-y one was, but still. Turn 2 here, we play Lumiere, who's going to buff all our other characters by 1 strength. And what we're really trying to do with this deck, as our opponent plays a Jetsam, is challenge. That's the core of it. We're going to exert their characters to make them vulnerable. We're going to rush into them. We're going to hit them with our bigger characters. And most of our value is coming from challenging them. We're going to draw cards from it. We're going to gain lore from it. And obviously remove their board. So here, Elsa Snow Queen on turn 3 will allow us to create those opportunities by being able to exert those characters, even if our opponent is not too willing to bump into us. So here we see them shifting their Flotsam and Jetsam into their Flotsam, making them a 5/5. While we play Prince Eric. Prince Eric, really good in this deck. He quests for 2, he's a 2/2, but mostly, if he's banished, he banishes someone else. So we're going to use him as a defensive tool more than as a quester, but if we're in a pinch, nothing prevents us from also questing with him. Here, their Jetsam, I think, gets their Flotsam and Jetsam evasive, so that's why they allowed themselves to quest freely with it. But here we're going to play a Fishhook and use that Fishhook to give evasive to our Prince Eric, sending him into the Flotsam and Jetsam, and then removing the Flotsam with his banishment, and then using Lumiere to finish Flotsam and Jetsam, while they play a Flotsam with Rush. So now we're both on empty boards. The opponent is considering questing, deciding against it. And here we already have most of our core pieces. We have the Chromicon, we have the Fishhook, and now we have Isabella, who is evasive herself. And when she's the only one questing, she does quest for 4. So she's our big threat, if you want, in terms of questing in this deck. You're going to see here just questing and daring our opponent to remove her, basically. And here they play a Flotsam and Jetsam without evasive, because we removed the other one. And we're probably just going to rinse and repeat with the evasive, although those 2 Queen of Hearts, if we ever need to challenge, will start giving us a lot of value, because 2 cards per challenge is going to be juicy. Opponents feeling the pressure, starting to quest with their Flotsam and Jetsam. we'll see here what we do. Oh, we got Super Goof. So we're going to buff Super Goof with both the Chromicon and the Fishhook, and then send him into the Flotsam and Jetsam, drawing 2 cards and gaining 2 lore. Huge tempo swing, refilling our hand basically. Inking Shere Khan, questing for 4, going up to 16 already. Wow. Opponent getting that Tinkerbell down to give evasive to Merlin so that he can remove our Isabella. But I mean, we're still 2 turns away just with our queens from getting to 20. So let's see if they can do anything to stop us. In this case, don't remember what we're considering, but clearly the thought must cross our mind to, yeah, exactly, to go remove that Flotsam just to draw the cards. And there we put Shere Khan and Hydros, so next turn we can exert their character with Hydros and challenge them with either Shere Khan or the Queen of Hearts and just gain lore from challenging on top of drawing cards. Although the opponent does give us the opportunity themselves to just challenge by exerting their characters. But we're going to give evasive to Shere Khan with the Fishhook here. Remove the characters, quest for 20, and that's going to be it. As we sign the game, this deck packs a punch. Even while playing the role of control with our exerting and challenging characters, we were still able to quest a few times with Isabella for 4 lore a turn to keep the board clear at the same time. By the time the opponent crashed their Merlin into it, it was already too late, and we had quested and drawn way too many cards for them to recover. That's going to be it for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment with the card you would put in the deck if you were the one building it. We'll see you tomorrow, but until then, keep on questing.